Hi students in Mrs. Olendersky's advanced math class. Sorry we missed you today. We are going to be talking about triangle congruence properties. So we're going to be filling out our foldable, and while we do, I'm going to try to explain them as we go. So we know that side, side, side means that you have all three side lengths in both triangles. If you know all three side lengths in both triangles, you can only form one triangle. That means that all the angles would have to also be the same in both triangles, which would mean you would have enough information to prove that these two triangles are congruent to each other. So we say knowing all three sides is enough information to prove congruence, because three sides can make only one triangle. Next, we're going to look at angle, side, angle. When you know angle, side, angle, then you know a side length, and then you know two angles on the opposite side. And in your second triangle, you have the same side length, that looks a little longer, and you know both of these angles. So for example, let's just pretend they're both 45-degree angles. Well, you know your last one would be a 90-degree angle because 45 and 45 make 90. And I like to consider this one the laser pointer. The laser pointer because you know the angle that it has to move towards, and you know this angle that it has to move towards, so there's only going to be one spot where it could meet. Same exact setup on this one, which would mean that these two triangles are going to be congruent. Knowing just two angles and the side length between them would be enough information to prove that they're congruent. Because they are meeting at this one exact spot, it'll create two fixed side lengths right here. So, knowing two angles and the lengths between them is enough to prove two triangles are congruent. That means I don't have to measure this side length, and I don't have to measure this angle in both of the triangles. Knowing just these two angles and this side length, as long as they're the same in both of my trusses or both of my triangles, I know that all of the dimensions for both triangles will be the same. Now let's look at side, angle, side. It's important to note here that the angle is between the two side lengths. So if I know a side, a fixed angle, and a side, I like to call this one the clamp. So, for example, if I have this green side length and this purple side length in both of my triangles, ooh, let me get another one of these sets. Actually, let's try these two right here. If I know, oh, where's my other green? Here we go. Okay, so if I have these, and this is set at the exact same, hold on, let me get it the exact same. Ready? Not a good example. Let's just pretend. Then these would be exactly fixed, just the same, which means I know this side length, I know this side length, and then this is a fixed angle. Then there's only one side length left that would fit right here, and it would be the exact same length on both, which means that knowing just a side, an angle, and then a side, as long as the angle is in between the two side lengths that you know, then it will definitely form two congruent triangles, just knowing this information. So this is called side, angle, side. And that's why I call it the clamp, is because there's no moving this. You can move it all around, but there's only one side length left there. Okay, so let's write about that one. Side length, angle. Same side length, angle. And I call this one, let's put this in, the laser, the clamp. Okay, because the fixed angle creates a fixed side length, knowing side, angle, side is enough to prove congruence. Okay, so angle, angle, angle. This is actually something that we're going to experiment with in class, but for the purposes of this experiment, let's just pretend, or purposes of this video, let's just pretend we did. I'm going to give the kids 3 angles. So let's just pretend I gave you 45, 45, and 90, just because that's a nice, easy one. So if I have 45, 45, and 90, that means I have these two. Actually, let's not use a right angle. I lied, sorry. Let's just say I have 60, 60, and 60. All of them are 60 degrees. Then you obviously have an equilateral triangle. Now, think of an equilateral triangle in your mind. Were you thinking of a 7 by 7 by 7 equilateral triangle? Because if you weren't, and maybe you were thinking of a 9 by 9 by 9, we can think of 2 different triangles because there's an infinite number of triangles that have 60 degrees, 60 degrees, and 60 degrees. And actually there's an infinite number of triangles that have any 3 different degrees. They don't have to all be the same. Because knowing just the angles only proves similarity. These 2 triangles will be similar to each other, but they won't be congruent. Well, they could be congruent, but we don't have enough information to prove that they are congruent. So knowing just the angles is not enough information to prove that they're congruent. So they might be, we would just have to find more information out. We know for a fact that they would be similar to each other. We're just not sure if they're congruent. So knowing only 3 angles is not enough to prove congruency, because only similar triangles can be proved. It's important, and I will note this during class, that you don't say that these 2 triangles aren't congruent. Because even if you know all 3 angles, if you measure any one side and that side is the same, then you'd actually be looking at angle, side, angle. And you would know that they are congruent. So here we just don't have enough information. We need to measure a side length as well. Okay, so the last one is a little complicated, side, side, angle. So one thing I'm going to mention in class is that it's very important that we call it side, side, angle and not angle, side, side. I can imagine you can figure out why. Anyways, the side, side, angle, basically you know 2 side lengths, and an outside angle. 2 side lengths and an outside angle. So if you know 2 side lengths and an outside angle, then this side length can actually move, which means that it could move inside and form this line right here, but it could also move this direction and catch the angle with an obtuse angle in here. Acute, obtuse. So you can actually make different triangles knowing just side, angle. So where the angle that you know is, where it actually is located, is very important. Because as you can see, I know two sides and an angle, I know two sides and an angle. But in this one, your angle is an exterior angle, not keeping these two side lengths locked together. So, same thing as last one, it's not enough information to prove. And I like to call this one the gate. Because the gate, this little piece right here, can swing in or it can swing out to catch that angle. And we're going to see this on CPMP tools as well. So knowing just two sides and an outside angle is not enough info to prove congruence. So we're going to try this with lots of different examples in class, but I wanted you to have a little bit of a head start when you get back. So please, if you can, watch this video tonight and be ready to go tomorrow. And we'll catch you up. Hope you had a great trip.